to Kansas, gateway to Oz. Under the rainbow, this is where it was. Hollyhocks and red ripe tomatoes, hand-churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. It's the best part of Dorothy's dream.
Today Around Kansas starts with a look at Battle Canyon, the tragic site of the Battle of Punished Woman's Fork outside of Scott City. Next, meet Kansas' own Little Miss Sunshine, Macey Hensley. Then enjoy a poem from our Poet Lariat, Ron Wilson, and we'll end with the history of Baxter Springs and the city cemetery. Stay with us. Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment is brought to you by Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. Just a short drive down the yellow brick road. And good morning. I'm Frank.
I'm Deb.
And this is Around Kansas. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's a beautiful month of May.
Oh, it is,
here.
isn't it?
It's the most beautiful time of year in Kansas.
Yes.
You know, I get to go all over the state, green grass everywhere, and just new calves on the ground, and you know, it's a really pretty time.
Yeah.
Everything blooming.
May is great.
May is great.
October is great. May and October.
Except for the allergies in May and October, you know that.
I don't know why I brought that up. It's just that I'm an October person. I love October.
I like October too.
Yeah.
But,
so anyway,
but I'm real happy with May so far. I dread the summer a little bit, honestly, all the heat. Well, I'm not going to have to worry about heat this weekend. Dr. Jake and I are headed up to Denver, which Kitties, remember, used to be part of Kansas. Don't forget that when you take the quiz. Make sure you mark that correctly. But the Order of the Indian Wars Conference is meeting up there, and that's just a wonderful group of folks from all over the country that meet to discuss the Indian Wars from the beginning of the founding of America on. Some things are still going on, but it's a great group of folks. And I did a segment on the Order of the Indian Wars group, I don't know, a while back, but you can go and that's archived on our website, when we went down to Las Cruces. And a lot of Kansas connections. I don't care where you go, there's going to be a lot of Kansas connections. And the fall trip this year is going to be the French and Indian Wars, so it's going to be back in western Pennsylvania. And of course, Kansas has an amazing connection to the French and Indian Wars, and that's Fort DeCavignac. That is sort of where Fort Leavenworth is today. So there were French soldiers stationed at Fort DeCavignac who were in western Pennsylvania fighting, and I think actually shooting at Daniel Boone, if the story I have is right. So all kinds of crazy Kansas connections in there.
Yeah. Now, we've talked about Don Goldsmith's books, The Trail of the Spanish Bit.
Yeah.
And the thing is people really thought he was Native American because Native Americans asked him that. And they said, well, because the stories you have told are so true to form. And so if you really want to get into not only really good stories, but some history, you might want to read those books. And he does refer to the various tribes, which are primarily here in Kansas, and he talks about the Western, which now we know it was more referring to the Colorado area, and of course the Eastern and Southern and Northern and all of that. And anyway, it's sometime at least start with book number 1, Trail of the Spanish Bit by Don Goldsmith.
They'll put you there. They'll put you there. And I was, one of the things we're going to talk about today is Scott City. And of course, especially the western and southwestern part of the state have so many connections to that Spanish history. And you'll be a fan for life of the history and Goldsmith stories. And there's just so much to be explored. And we'll do it with you in just a minute. Stay with us.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
Here's another gardening tip with Annette Jackson from Jackson's Greenhouse.
If you don't have a garden, you can still enjoy fresh vegetables by growing them in containers. Let Jackson's help you select the correct plants for your pots. Use Fertilome's Ultimate Potting Mix. Place pots in the sun and feed them weekly with Fertilome's water-soluble fertilizer. Water thoroughly when dry and watch your garden grow.
Our vegetable plants are homegrown, healthy, and ready to grow.
Jackson's Greenhouse has what you need today.
Support Kansas agriculture education with an AgriTag. AgriTags are available anytime at your county treasurer. They look great on cars and trucks. For more information, go online to ksagclassroom.org.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
While I wrestled the alligator, Marlon over here is going to... that gives away your age, doesn't it, if you're talking about Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom?
Yeah, I was pretending to read a book here, so I'm going to be the presenter again.
My lovely assistant.
Tell us about this.
Okay, this is a fantastic book. Raymond Powers, and many of you know Raymond, was former director of the Kansas State Historical Society before he retired, a native of Gove County, so he grew up in the middle of all this history. And Jim Liker wrote this great book on the Northern Cheyenne. Now, remember the movie Cheyenne Autumn? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's based on this incident. So the book talks about how this Cheyenne exodus, where the Cheyenne have been moved to Oklahoma and they're trying to get back to their native home in northwestern Nebraska and that area, right around Rapid City and South Dakota and a little south of there. So as they're coming through Kansas in 1878 with the raids, and so the one we're going to talk about today, the piece of that is the battle at Punished Woman's Fork, which is just outside of Scott City. It's just there next to the lake. I had never been there until just this month, or a few weeks ago, last month maybe. Dr. Jake took me out to see it, and I'm embarrassed to say I'd not been to Battle Canyon before. You've got to see it. You will be blown away. It's a fantastic sight, and the history is very tragic, as many of our Indian War stories are, but really important. And the community there is doing an awful lot to interpret that, and they've got the El Cuartelejo Museum in Scott City, which helps interpret that history, and the state park there, and there's just so much going on. So it's a fantastic place to go spend the day and again get some exercise during the spring and learn some fantastic history. So now Frank might actually read the book instead of just pretending to read the book.
I'm going to read this, and she'll tell you the story.
Driving along Highway 83 north of Scott City, the prairies break into occasional bluffs, the grass is short, and yucca dots the landscape. Even with these hints, however, you can't help but gasp when you turn off the road to the west and drive down into historic Scott Lake State Park. Yes, down. The road wides down the hillside. The scenery and abundant wildlife, the sunrises and sunsets over the lake, the incredible history within its confines, all beckon the visitor to stay a while. This corner of Kansas has many stories to tell, and today I will share just one, the battle at Punished Woman's Fork in 1878. There are enough tragic stories in the annals of the Plains Indian Wars to fill volumes. Sadly, this story is among them. The Northern Cheyenne had been moved from northwestern Nebraska and bordering South Dakota to the Indian Territory. Conditions were deplorable, and they decided to go home. Historian John Monette calls it an exodus, as we refer to the children of Israel fleeing Egypt. Most Kansans of the day called it something else. The Dodge City Times covered skirmishes with the band of Cheyennes in their neighborhood. The Red Devils, the wild and hungry Cheyennes, commit murder and arson. Several herders murdered, a house burned down, wholesale stealing of horses, an Indian fight, 3 soldiers killed and 3 wounded, the border wild with excitement, straggling bands of Indians raiding everywhere, Another Indian skirmish, an Indian killed, a soldier wounded, immigrant trains robbed, 4 companies of cavalry ordered to dodge. I will not do the disservice of reducing that event to a couple of lines here. Let it be said, Lewis was mortally wounded and died en route to Fort Wallace, and the Indians' horse herd was destroyed, a devastating blow. The most significant effect, however, lay in the attitudes on both sides, leading to pressure from the public for real protection and a more violent and personal response from Dull Knife and his followers, resulting in the brutal raid near Oberlin. This is a story you must experience. Visit Punished Woman's Fork, adjoining historic Scott Lake State Park. Visit the Jerry Thomas Gallery at the El Cuartelejo Museum in Scott City, where you will find photos and artifacts, along with Jerry's incredible art. Visit the Last Indian Raid Museum in Oberlin. Read The Northern Cheyenne Exodus in History and Memory by Jim Leiker and Raymond Powers. Read Tell Them We Are Going Home by John Monette. The story is far too rich and complex for sound bites, but I will leave you with a couple. Lewis was described by a friend as the most tolerant and least prejudiced man I ever met. And when Dull Knife's people reached the Promised Land and were imprisoned for crimes committed along the way, he responded that if the authorities try to send us back, we will butcher each other. Let us never, ever forget these were real people, not just dusty photographs.
Lecompton. The name was splashed across newspapers throughout America and Europe. It was debated in the halls of Congress. Lecompton interprets its unique territorial history with 2 museums and other sites. Events throughout the year celebrate history and community.
The 160th anniversary of the Battle of Fort Titus, June 18th, 2 p.m. Reenactors welcome. Call 785-887-6148 for more information.
Spend the day in historic Lecompton, shopping, eating, savoring the rich history.
When your living depends on agriculture, you can depend on KFRM 550 AM. If you're in the southwest 3/4 of Kansas or the northern half of Oklahoma, catch us at 550 AM on the radio dial. But if that isn't you, listen on your cell phone at TuneIn Radio or on your computer at KFRM.com. We promise to keep you informed, entertained, and company as you go through your day. KFRM 550 AM, the voice of the plains. We would like to join your management team.
I think it really extends your home out to the outdoors, and Mark always had kind of a vision of what he wanted to do with the yard, and so he envisioned this kind of outdoor area, the waterfall and things, but when Blueville came in, they had some really good ideas of how to place it and how to do different things that really enhanced the project. So,
yeah, over the years we've grown to really enjoy our outdoor living space and developed a great working relationship with Blueville.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Find out more at kansasgrainsorghum.org. And we're back. Aren't you happy?
I know I am.
You know, Sunbeam used to make, well, that was the brand of bread. Little Miss Sunbeam was on there. Well, of course, Kansas now has essentially a Little Miss Kansas.
You know, I was thinking, it's funny you should say the Sunbeam thing, because I look at Macey Hensley and I think Little Miss Sunshine or Little Miss Sunbeam or something, because she's just this boundless ball of energy. I got to meet her in Council Grove last year when Michael Martin Murphey was doing a concert there, and he had Macey come on stage, and then after the concert, or during the concert, after she had gone off stage, I could see her sitting over there with her mother and daddy, and she falls asleep in her daddy's arms, and she's all curled up with her little cowgirl boots in her daddy's arms. And I'm like, here's this incredibly bright child who's still just a little girl, you know, and that really brought home that she's just a little girl.
And you might have seen her on Ellen, so let's hear about her.
You may have seen her just any number of places. She's amazing.
Macey Hensley is the best thing to happen to Kansas since Dorothy. The precocious 5-year-old won the hearts of the nation when she appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres Show and wowed her host and the audience with her knowledge of the U.S. presidents.
Who's this?
John Quincy Adams.
And who was the First Lady?
Louisa.
And the Vice President was?
John C. Calhoun.
Okay, do you have any fun facts on him?
He swam naked in the Potomac.
Since then, she's been back to Ellen's show and has appeared alongside some of the biggest stars in the business. She's been to the White House and met President Obama. She beat the House of Cards' fictitious president, Frank Underwood, played by Kevin Spacey, in a game of presidential trivia. She's taken up ventriloquism since Council Grove neighbor Dave May gave her a George W. Bush dummy and a couple of lessons on throwing her voice. The demonstrations of her newfound hobby left television audiences rolling with laughter. Macey's fascination with the nation's chief executives began when her grandmother gave her a set of flashcards. Her favorite is Zachary Taylor because he wore blue.
I think you know who this is.
Zachary Taylor.
That's too easy. And there's a fun fact that doesn't seem so fun. What's the fun fact here?
Oh, he wore a wool suit to the 4th of July and he got too hot. Then he drank 2 full glasses of milk and some cherries. That's how he died. Some people thought that the cherries were poisonous.
She's vocal about her love for Kansas as well, making her the perfect spokesperson for the Sunflower State. Commercials featuring the now 6-year-old Macey at Kansas tourist sites began airing in April and are being shared on the internet like germs in preschool. Macey is unabashed in announcing her ambition to become president herself someday. Well, we better be clearing out a spot in the State House for her statue.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses and rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. About a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery. And so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, after 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results with stem cell injections, but at about 3 to 3.5 months, I started to feel better. I started to have less pain and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months. And I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information. Around Kansas, brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Kansas was a key crossroads of several historic trails. There was the Chisholm Trail, the Great Western Trail, the Oregon-California Trail, and the Santa Fe Trail. The cattle trails were the ones that came from the south. The Oregon-California Trail was a migration trail of people going west, but it was the Santa Fe Trail that was a trail of commerce. Along the Santa Fe Trail. One of the great stories of the American tale is the history of the pioneers along the Santa Fe Trail. We picture those times from bygone day when traders went traveling down to Santa Fe. They left from Missouri, and southwest they would go to search for riches in old Mexico. They braved the hardships of hazards and weather, and they connected this part of the world together. After the years of the Mexican-American War came stagecoaches and fur trappers, gold seekers, and more. There were bright senoritas, bandits, Indian attacks, padres, mule skinners, and freighters with packs. This was the great highway to the American Southwest, traveled by pioneers on opportunity's quest. Here's what makes this story especially great. The trail has more miles in Kansas than any other state. So looking back, we marvel at how they survived, as in our mind's eye, the old trail comes alive. We give thanks that those pioneers made their journey without fail as they tamed the frontier along the Santa Fe Trail. Happy trails.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. A high-energy, drought-tolerant crop, Sorghum only requires 6 inches of water to produce the first bushel. And with its wide uses and easy adaptation, sorghum proves to be a truly indispensable crop. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Around Kansas, brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. Go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter. Okay, who's going to start this? I guess I will. Hi, welcome back. So, southeast Kansas, I don't know how many of you have been down there, but there's a lot of history. And, so anyway, we wanted to talk about Baxter Springs. So.
Baxter Springs, and the city cemetery there's a corner of that is the Soldiers Lot, and that is another one of our national cemeteries. And Baxter Springs happened a little bit by accident, sort of like the Arlington Cemetery did. Its roots go back to the Civil War with Quantrell's raid on Baxter Springs, and this followed, shortly after the raid on Lawrence, and it was a really a terrible affair, and the people who died in that, the soldiers who died in that, were buried there, and I think this segment may talk a little bit about that. But again, just like Arlington, our first national cemetery, it has roots in the Civil War. And on a related note, another great book is just the Baxter Springs Massacre. And it is written by a descendant of a man who was killed there. And we talked about it on the Star Wars connection. Remember that?
Yeah.
We talked about the Star Wars connection. So another plug for that Baxter Springs Massacre book. It's really good. So let's take a look at this very small but very significant national cemetery.
I think our chicken's here.
Oh, great. We'll be back. Baxter Springs Soldiers Lot is located in the north-central portion of the city cemetery in Baxter Springs. The earliest burials in the plot include 132 Union soldiers and officers killed on October 6, 1863, during the Battle of Baxter Springs. The battle, often referred to as the Baxter Springs Massacre, followed closely on the heels of the Lawrence Massacre. William Clark Quantrell and his Confederate guerrillas were responsible for both. The federal government intended to remove the bodies of the men who died during the massacre to Springfield, Missouri National Cemetery, but the citizens of Baxter Springs petitioned to keep them. As part of the arrangement to retain the burials, the city of Baxter Springs donated the tract of land to the government and agreed to keep the graves in good order. In 1886, the federal government erected a large marble and granite monument at the Soldiers' Lot in memory of the men killed in the Battle of Baxter Springs, as well as soldiers and officers killed in other nearby engagements. Funds were appropriated to build the monument after the local Grand Army of the Republic, GAR post, launched a petition drive in 1885, collecting signatures from more than 7,000 veterans. The monument was fabricated by Mitchell Granite Works of Quincy, Massachusetts, at a cost of $4,000. Dedicated on Decoration Day, 1886, the monument is inscribed with the names of 163 soldiers and officers. The monument is over 20 feet high and is surmounted with a marble statue of a Union soldier at parade rest. 4 1853 24-pound siege gun cannons mounted in concrete bases are located within the monument's perimeter, one at each corner.
Well, the chicken was delicious.
Yes, it was.
I'm Frank.
I'm Deb.
And we'll see you somewhere around Kansas. Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. We're the best part of Dorothy's dream. We're the best part of Dorothy's dream.
To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamandkansas.com.